Okay, here we are. We're back for another week, another show. How's it going, man? How you doing, Price?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
How's it going with you?
Uh, Busy. As you can tell, we're a couple minutes late today, but that's been a busy season. But I'm happy to be here, especially with you, especially with this week's script, because it's a different type of script that we have going than what we normally get. A little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of other stuff going on. We'll get to that in just a moment. But yeah, how are things going with you?
Everything with me is going actually pretty decently. Yeah,
That's awesome.
can't complain.
Likewise, yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm going to complain about is that my busyness is going to slow down once we hit November. So I'm gonna relish that a little bit, and then regret relishing that if that slowed period continues on. But yeah, so,
Being busy is good. You always have to kind of be happy about being busy, especially in the kind of things that we do.
yeah, yeah.
More you than me, but I'm saying that even me, I can tell you that when I say the kind of things that we do, I suspect that both you and I in our real lives, we rely on a lot of contract work. I would say things that are maybe
hmm
not always the same. And I think that when there's periods of times that there's a lot of things happening, that's a good period of time overall.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, there's no such thing as indefinite employment when you're working in the entertainment industry. It's just
Right, exactly.
all right. So with that being said, sounds like the audio is good. I'm so happy for all the people joining in live. Thank you so much for that. Let's get started. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, behind the scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and join me again this week, Price of Reason. Gosh, you're in the double digits of co-hosting now, at least. It's
I
just,
think so.
and
But you
that's
know what? I'm
awesome.
happy
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing this show. This is I feel like here and there I do some streams and currently because of things that
hmm
certain obligations that I have, I do them more sparingly. But this stream I always like doing because it feels like something beyond just us shooting the breeze about something current that's going on. It feels a bit more even. I don't know if to say education or something like that. There's something that we're doing that I think is cooler. It's something that requires some extra effort and thought, and I really love being a part of these streams. So thank you for inviting me again.
Oh, always happy to. That's one of the things I like to do with the channel. Even though we've converted on this channel over to more live streaming stuff, the videos that I have produced, I like them to be a little bit more evergreen. This type of show is definitely evergreen because it's really just about the screenplay itself, and if the screenplay is what we review ever become feature films, people can find us and see how that screenplay was before it was produced, and you get a whole ton of great, insightful information of from start to finish, from script to screen, so to speak, aspects. And again, we're going to have some special live shows coming up when the Madden movie with Nick Cage is released, because that was the first script we reviewed on this show. So that'll be a fun time, and I like that we're able to have excuse me. I like to be able to have these conversations with you and all the other co-hosts about the screenplay and the writing process and the concept of story. And we've got a fascinating script to share with you all today. This script placed 51 on the blacklist last year. It is written by Kayla Sun, and it placed 51 with 11 votes, so same amount of votes as last week's script. I don't know how they qualified that this one was 51 versus last week's, I think, was 58, if memory serves. But they did. And the title is called Boy Girl Fig. So, Price, please share with us the log line for Boy Girl Fig.
I'm going to do that right now. Give me a second because you
Sure.
sent me the log line. So here it is. Aiden was born with a rare condition where he becomes invisible to those who love him. He struggles when he falls in love with his childhood best friend.
The synopsis is as follows. 7-year-old Aiden grapples with a devastating curse. His loved ones can never can never see him, can no longer ever see him, leaving him desperate for true connection and visibility. Drawn to his enigmatic childhood friend Velare, whose dark secret has isolated her from everyone, he risks everything by falling in love, hoping their bond can break through the shadows of solitude. So, if you are listening out there, this log line, the synopsis, delves into a romantic story with a little bit of a sci-fi, supernatural type of edge to it. As you can tell from the thumbnail here, it's got like it's a warm and type of sweet thematic story. Price, share with us your first initial impressions with the first 10 pages or opening act of the script Boy Girl Fig.
Well, the thing is that when the screenplay starts, and when I started reading the first few pages, I kind of had this feeling that I wouldn't like it, because it sort of tries to do something, and I said, man, what are they going to do with this idea? This seems like it's going to annoy me. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, as I sort of was able to overcome my initial reservations of the first few pages of it, I started reading it, and I felt like that there was a bit of more thought put into it. And as I was reading it, I felt that I wasn't suffering reading it.
It's definitely not something that is trying to do that. This, as we were saying in the green room beforehand, the first, the opening of this script and kind of like the theme that was underlying it, which is basically perseverance over obstacles. It reminded me of watching kind of like an anime or like a Japanese cartoon film. Not in the same elevation as like Spirited Away or any of the of those classics, but something that kind of has there's this underlying heart to the story, and it's also got the aspects of going into some darker areas as well, but not to a point where it's not dark in the traumatic sort of way of like, oh yeah, if a child were to watch this, they would be completely traumatized for the rest of their lives type of stuff. It's more like exposing one aspect of reality, but at the same time showing examples of really good like human decency and kindness. And I thought that was pretty neat. And I did some digging into the writer here, into Kayla Sun, and this script is kind of an adaptation and inversion of a short film she wrote a little over 5 years ago called Velare, where it's just inverted. Instead of the boy Aiden, who becomes invisible when people sort of start to love him, it's her. She becomes invisible when people who start to love her, and as she starts a relationship, she's terrified that this person that she cares about, as he cares more about her, they disappear. And so this is a very interesting premise, and she's flipped it and inverted it and started it off with the innocence of children first to kind of make you really connect with them. And I dug that because it starts off with like a deliberate type of opening credits page, talking about a fig, a purple hair clip, a piano, a gray pigeon, like a calloused male hand, a kitchen knife, young boy, young girl, kind of cooking and making food, and just kind of like a nice little montage of things of normal household, of household activity. And then we see that there's this kid he's at an elementary school, but not really on the campus. He's across the street in a park, and he's got this salmon-colored balloon attached to his shirt collar up above his head. And it's very peculiar.
Right.
And what I appreciated about the first, at least the first 15 pages of the script, is that the writer doesn't treat the reader like they're an idiot. He has, this writer, she creates Aiden as this really kind of naive, charming, innocent, encouraging kid who wants to have a friend and makes efforts to do so. And as we see the peculiarities of him, we realize why he kind of is the way he is. He's because it is revealed that to those that love him, he can't be seen. He makes extra effort to have an impact on the people around him because they can't see him. And that is a really sweet character trait that is revealed with this character of Aiden. And the way that we start this script is at the schoolyard where Aiden meets Valare. They're both 7 years old. They both happen to be Asian. And Valare is kind of described as an isolationist and a little bit of a freak. But Aiden thinks that she's interesting and neat and likes to talk with her. And she has this peculiar behavior where she kind of shuts everybody out. And she doesn't do so by telling them off or anything. She just ignores them or keeps focused on whatever it is, whatever task is ahead of her. And she also has this habit of crossing the street without ever looking both ways, and even crossing the street against a red light. Almost fearless, like she's fearless. And so these are the first few traits that we get of these characters and their introduction. And I thought it was a pretty strong intro. I really kind of connected with these characters. Now, Bryce, you did say a little bit at first that it started to frustrate you, and that's quite all right. But how did it play out with you? Yeah.
I'll tell you why, though, and you actually solved my problem with it, because I kept thinking to myself, imagining myself watching this movie as sort of a live action, and the idea that the people that love him can't see him and he sort of disappears, it's a bit abstract. And I thought to myself, this feels a bit strange. Mm-hmm. And when I tried to see it play out in a more kind of cinematic way, it didn't fully work for me. But when you told me, what if this was like an anime? And then I thought to myself, what if this was a movie that Miyazaki did for Studio Ghibli or something like that, and he made this kind of movie? I think that he would have 100% pulled it off, and I would have bought into it, because in an animated format, I think that his special quality of disappearing would have been a lot more well received. It's kind of in live action that I'm not saying it's impossible to sell it, mm-hmm. but I did have more and more questions about it. Who can see him and why? And there's one thing where they give him a cup and the cup disappears, but the balloon somehow doesn't disappear. There were things that I was wondering, why does this happen? Why does this not happen? I think in an animated setting, you're already a little more open to accepting something more fantastical.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I even think it works out with some of the descriptions of the settings, because the way that they described the neighborhood is very distinct, individualistic looking buildings with various colors, light blues, light pinks, light oranges. It just felt very kind of fantasy like to me. And I think it was around page 7 or 8 that's where my mind kind of said, this feels like it should be a cartoon. And not in a sense of patronizing the audience or anything, but just in the sense that you get more whimsy and wonder of this world and of these characters that better complements it than making it completely live action.
I feel like whoever made this, Kayla Sun or whatever her name is, if she would have written on page 1 an animated adventure or something like that, this thing probably would have shot up a number of spots on this top 100 list. It's the fact that you're supposed to read it and kind of think, hey, this is a live action movie, that sort of keeps it maybe from being a higher spot on the list than it is, in my opinion.
Oh, I bet that was probably a majority of interpretations when people were reading the script. And I also suspect that it was possibly also the intention of the writer that this was to be live action. But one of the things that kind of made it more like a cartoon for me was how the dialogue was kind of framed. We have this one part where Aiden introduces himself, and of course Valare doesn't say anything back right away. and he asks about like, do you know do you know what fig trees mean in Chinese? They're like wu hao gao or guo or something of that nature. And he talks about like it means a fruit with no flowers because people never see flowers on a fig tree. It's just grows the fruits. Did you know this word? And there's an innocence to it, and it's there's a definition going on within the dialogue that that conveys conveys some like an openness, so to speak, to like it just bring you in. And because Valari is introduced as saying very little, and Aiden is a very talkative guy, you kind of feel like like the old cartoons, like especially the old Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies. You have the big bulldog and then the little yappy friend that kind of just hops around him as he's wandering away, saying, "Aren't you great? Aren't you great? You're the best. You're the super. You're fantastic. You're amazing." And you just kind of get that same type of doting puppy dog relationship between Aiden and Valari, where he's just like, I want this kid to be my friend, and I'm trying to impress them. And what he's getting back is very short, very empty, kind of hollow responses. And you have this big dichotomy, and it's also a conflict that is pretty fascinating. Like, you would expect in a normal script, someone who makes such an effort to introduce themselves to someone, and they get short, curt responses, you'd think, okay, they're just going to leave this person alone and walk away. But not Aiden. He's like, nope, I'm going to break through whatever this person's shell is and try and make a connection. And he even asks like her out on a study date. He's like, hey, do you want to study together on Sunday? And Valare is saying, I don't know. And he's like, I'll be at the park. I'll see you there. Doesn't even entertain the I don't know part. He's like, nope, I'm going to be there anyway. So I expect to be there. Expect you to be there. Bye. And it's and I thought it was kind of like a little sweet, different take on a meet cute, and really kind of parlayed on the innocence of children. Covered the relationships and the innocence of children at that age, when kids are making new friends.
I agree. It's it does actually capture that vibe, and it does it pretty decently. And like I've said, in the early pages when I was reading, I was a bit kind of thrown off. It's not that I don't like fantasy. I do like fantasy, but the thing that he has where he disappears and you don't fully understand when and how that happens. I mean, even now I'll tell you, in a live action setting, it's really a difficult thing to buy into.
Yeah.
But once you've described it, and I'm imagining it differently. And I think, without thinking animation, I just said to myself, listen, think that this is almost like a fantasy fairy tale type of thing. This is not... Don't think of it like you're nitpicking here, because if you nitpick too much, you won't be able to continue to read the screenplay. And I just kind of said, okay, let's just go with it. And I was rather happy that I did, because the more you read, the more you see that there were some thoughtful ideas here. For starters, I like the idea that we saw it from his perspective at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we're learning what his I don't know if to say it's a defect or whatever it is you want to call it, the thing that he has that's unique. We learn about his life, and we learn about what he's seeing when he sees this Valari girl, but we don't really understand where she's coming from. There are things about her that we certainly don't understand, and you almost think that maybe she could be evil or something. And I think that as we move forward and we suddenly shift to also learn more about her perspective, I think that that's where it becomes actually more interesting. And again, maybe it's a trope, the skill that she has, I don't know what to even call it, the
right.
unique thing that she does. It's something that we've seen in other movies before and in other books. It's not like nobody reinvented the wheel here.
No.
But the idea that she can sort of see into the future of how people will meet their demise, I think that I kind of like that. And then the idea of both of them interacting with each other, I thought that was handled in a pretty interesting way as well.
Yes, because I like her revelation comes in the third act, at the start of the third act, and it's a really fascinating one. But the one thing that I really appreciate about this script is that it's a very, very simple story. It gets it's broken up into like four sections. So the first section is just the general introduction of the characters, and one of the things that's kind of clever is even at 7 years old, Aiden knows how to hide from his parents. So he has a balloon that's attached to his shirt. He then tucks it underneath his shirt when he goes inside, and he just starts rummaging around, grabbing some candy, and his parents cannot see him at all. And they're expecting him and his older brother to come home, and his mom and dad are having a conversation about that. And then he goes into his room, and when he opens his closet door, all of his clothes have, all of his shirts at least have balloons attached to them on a string. And we don't exactly understand what this is until we get to this point where Aiden, while he's in his room, he hears police sirens, he sees police lights, and he looks out his window and he sees that these lights are heading towards Valare's house. And so he immediately runs out of the house to go see what happened, to see if his friend is okay. And she's just kind of whisked away into the back of the police car, and she says the last words to him, which is, "Don't ever let me see you again." And then she just drives off, and we go into a title card that says Part 1 Boy, and it's Aiden, who's a little bit older, and he's kind of recounting his life, that he's born in April of 1995, and everything looks normal, and the nurses are kind of like cleaning him up as a fresh newborn. They swaddle him in a blanket. They hand him to his mother, and his mother freaks out because she doesn't see anything at all, and she is terrified, and and the doctors and the nurses are very perplexed, and there's examinations that are going on with the parents and with little Aiden, and they're essentially say, we don't know exactly what it is, but what we can confirm is that he's a very healthy baby boy, but he is invisible to the people who love him. And it's not just his body, but also whatever's close enough to his body. So his clothes are gone. If he grabs a cup, it's gone. If he grabs a sandwich, it vanishes. If he grabs a letter and writes on it and then puts it down, it will disappear and then reappear with writing on it. And what I thought was kind of clever and funny is that the older brother, and I want to make sure I pronounce this guy's name correctly, Iliam, who's only 4 years older than Aiden, is the only one that can see him because he's jealous of the attention that his brother's getting. So he doesn't quite love his brother anymore.
But then over time, what happens is that I guess he grows to actually care about his brother, and then I think he can't see him anymore.
Exactly, and that's kind of the that's a really clever way to sort of show how siblings sort of grow together, right? Because there's always this, it's this brand new thing that's strange. It's another kid. It's getting way more attention than I was getting, or than I am getting. So I'm now going to resent that kid. And what I thought was kind of funny, but also very humbling, and at the same time a little bit beautiful, is that Iliam, because he can see Aiden, he draws a really terrible picture of what Aiden looks like, so that his parents can kind of get an idea of what their kid looks like. And they end up framing that picture and putting it in their bedroom, because when they take photographs, whether it's from a Polaroid or a disposable camera or anything, there's nothing in the photograph for them. They can't see them. So this is the only way that they have no idea what their kid looks like, and they have to adjust and get used to this. And it isn't until Aiden is maybe I think 5 or 6 years old, his grandfather comes home with a whole bunch of balloons for his birthday party, and Aiden manages to take one, and as he moves around with it, the balloon moves with him. And so now their parents can realize, this is how we can see where our kid is. And that's why he wears the balloon all the time. And we get this beautiful sub-story where there's this kid named Riker who becomes friends with with Aiden. They go playing outdoors with the other kids, and his parents are worried that if he spends too much time with his friend, he's going to disappear in front of them, and then they don't want him to go through that pain. But even though they tell him no, you can't hang out with him more than once a month, Aiden still manages to sneak out and hang out with his friends. And then one day, while they're playing, Aiden starts to become transparent to Riker, and Riker freaks out and runs away. and we see how this progression sort of works, where the more people get closer to Aiden, he starts to become more opaque. You can kind of start seeing through him, and it's not instant, but it's gradual, and it's kind of like he's being stolen away from the people when he's loved. Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. And then after we kind of get all that information, which is done pretty quickly, like it's really effectively done across the first 25 pages just kind of fly by. We kind of jump to the year 2016, where Aiden is 20 years old. He's just finished school, or homeschool at least, and he's looking for a job. And his older brother says, you could work for the police, because once you could be an infiltrator into or an undercover cop and into the crime families, because once they get to like you, you'll vanish, and then you can just wander around and listen to everything they say and report back to the authorities. And Aiden kind of takes that to a degree, and he ends up getting a job working for an investigator named Mrs. October. And some of the names that popped up here also made it feel more like it was a cartoon, because like Aiden's last name is One. He works for Mrs. October. There's a guy named Mr. 11 in there as well. There's another one named Mrs. April. Like they just don't feel like real names. They feel like fantasy names to me.
Another reason why this would have been perfect as a cartoon, one of those Miyazaki movies.
Yeah,
I saw that Boy and the Heron when it came out in recent years. I saw it in the theater, and man, that movie is completely out there. Like, you're watching all this stuff, it's completely fantasy, but it has some kind of logic to it. I think that his art style and the way those movies are made, you can buy into a lot of fantasy ideas that in a more kind of straight up live action format may not be as convincing. But I do agree. All of this, even the names of the characters, everything, the tone, the vibe, the dialogue, everything feels very animated.
Yeah, we get this really cool scene as Aiden is trying to figure himself out, because he's talking. We find out that he's telling his story to a dog, in a really cute fashion, and this really like solidified it that okay, this is a cartoon, because I mean it'd be kind of weird to have like a live action film that's trying to have a serious tone about this, and all of a sudden he's talking to a dog, and it's like, okay, the tone might be off, but if it was an anime cartoon, you can believe, okay, yeah, 20-year-old is talking to a dog about his life story, basically saying, like, at the end, I kept my promise to my parents. I'd do my best to not try and make deep connections with anybody, so that I could always be seen, so that it's only my family that can't find me, but I can function in the rest of the world, because people can see me because they don't like me. And then the dog owner appears, and it's this beautiful woman named Tatum, who's around 20, and she thanks Aiden for keeping an eye on the dog, because she lost him around the corner, and she introduces herself, and they start talking, and they start exchanging stories, and Tatum talks about how the only thing that kind of like happened tragically in her past was she was at the zoo one day, and a middle-aged couple fell into a tiger pit and were mauled, and she's like, I'd never want to ever go to a zoo ever again. It was frightening. It was terrifying. And then as she talks about, like, I'm so glad I met you. I felt that we had a real connection to between us, don't you? And this causes Aiden to kind of freeze. And as they're exchanging like a glance, Tatum's smile starts to gradually turn to horror, and as she blinks, we go into her point of view, and then Aiden it becomes slightly transparent, and she can see others walking behind him, and yeah, she's kind of having a double take, and she doesn't know what's going on, and of course Aiden picks up on it, but he's asking if she's okay, and she's like, I don't know, but I feel under the weather. Excuse me, I'm not feeling under the weather, but she's feeling under the weather, and politely says, "Nice meeting you, but I'm gonna leave," and then she just kind of takes off. And Aiden, of course, you have that moment where he leans back and he sighs and he's like, "Yep, I'm kind of used to this." And that is total, anime style cartoon level storytelling of we get right into a conflict and then we see the main character's reaction of how regular this is, and it just completely hits on the connections, the empathy and sympathy for what this guy's going through.
Yeah, I agree.
So once as this part of the story here, we get into Aiden working for Detective October. And how did you find this introduction of what Aiden's new role is in life after we kind of get into the weeds of things?
I had a question, because initially I think that they send him on an assignment to take pictures or something, and it's like, they're not his loved ones, so they can see him, so he's not invisible to them.
Right.
So how is he so good at his job immediately? I guess only because you could say, well, his whole life he's felt invisible, so he knows how to be invisible even when he's visible.
Or he knows how to be discreet. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? I did have a bit of thoughts about that. It's like, what makes him a great detective? That's actually one of the parts that I was like, so what if his parents can't see him? Doesn't mean he's a good detective.
No, I was in the same boat. I was like, okay, so he's got a job. He applies for this job, and Detective October, doesn't really believe that he can turn invisible. She's like, I just need someone who can go follow these people, take their photos, bring it back, so I've got evidence for whatever case is brought before me. And Aiden says, okay, yeah, I can kind of do that. Because she questions, like, so you can be invisible? And he's like, well, under certain circumstances. And like even his older brother is there, kind of reinforcing, like, yeah, I can't see him, but you can see him for now. And the other part too is he knows how to also navigate without being noticed, even if you don't know what he looks like. And so Aiden gets his first assignment where he's in the back of his car. He's holding a camera and he's watching a man and woman at the early stages of an affair. Like, we're not seeing anything particular, but they're by a window. They they kiss before they close the set of curtains, and he gets the photos. And his boss October is impressed and says, "Okay, you're hired, and I'll put you to work on some of the cases that I have." And we get the sense that she's kind of teaching him a little bit of how to investigate. And what's fascinating is that Aiden comes forth and says that this quote unquote power I have, it doesn't work like something I can turn on and off. And then October, she takes out a book from her bookshelf and opens up a whole bunch of these old recorded files from other cases that she has. And she's got a bunch of investigations. There's people who are capable of telling when someone is about to lie. There's investigations of various thefts that have become revealed that there are some people who become transparent or invisible the more someone cares about them, and that this one suspect that had this, he ended up dying at the age of 55, unmarried and alone. And Aiden is kind of shocked that the condition that he has is not unique to him, but has occurred previously. And October has that whole, like, that grizzled look of, yeah, kid, I've been doing this for a number of years. I've seen a lot of weird stuff. What you're doing, not strange to me. You'll be fine in my office. and I liked how it kind of set up that, yeah, we are living definitely in a world that has a lot of familiarity to ours, but plays by very different rules.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and then we get into this part of his world where people are coming to October because they have been robbed of things that some things have sentimental value, some things have almost no value, and they're, because of it's only being sentimental value with no dollar amount attached to it, the police won't investigate because it's like, oh, this one guy has a bunch of notebooks that he's written stories in, but he's never shared them with anyone. They've never been published. So when they go missing, the police are like, well, we can't really help you trace that because if it has no value to anyone else, no one's going to buy it. Therefore, all the leads that we would normally explore are not going to show up anything. There's nothing we can do. So this guy, Mr. 11, ends up going to a private detective, October, and says, hey, can you help me find who might have broken into my apartment and only taken these books? They didn't take any money. They didn't take any jewelry, nothing of value. He has old, he has old jewelry from his wife that has passed away earlier. There was money in the drawers. None of that was taken, just his notebooks. And this is a very interesting case to October, and of course to Aiden, who is just kind of, taking his notes and learning as he can, but he's not leading any of this investigation. So what ends up happening is that they take this case, and so Aiden is sent to essentially stake out his apartment to see if anyone goes into the building again that might be burglaring other tenants in that complex. And while he's there watching, he sees Valara, grown up, entering in a psychic's shop across the street, and he's completely dumbstruck by this. And at first, he doesn't know if it's actually her or not until the owner of the shop, who's named Sanvi, she says, "Okay, see you tomorrow, Valare." And Aiden's like, "Holy crap, it's her." And
how do they know? The thing is, honestly, if I met somebody when he was like 7 years old or whatever it is, and I know if you and I met when we were 7,
mm-hmm.
and then I didn't see you for 11 years or 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, I may not look at you and immediately know that you're you. You know what I'm saying?
There's that possibility. I mean, it's funny.
It works well in a movie. Again, like you
does.
said, in an anime, if you keep them looking very similar but a bit older, maybe you can get away with it in an anime movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are some people who, they drastically change physically from being a kid to an adult. Well, what's funny is late last year, I ran into someone who I hadn't seen in 30 years who looked just like he did 30 years ago. Like, he just looks like an older version of him as a kid. He had very, very, very distinct features. But that's the thing. Like, if you have very distinct features, those tend to stick with you throughout your entire... And that's how you can kind of tell someone when they get older. But the vast majority of people that I've met, that I've seen with family photos, they look very bland and plain. They don't get their distinctive looks until, they're in their 20s. When they've actually completed puberty and they've grown up into an adult. They look vastly different than what they did when they were a kid. But yeah, there can be some occasions. But yeah, in this case here, it's more like, as it starts out for Aiden, he's gravitated toward this young lady, and he's wondering if that's her. And it's not until the other character says her name that he's able to confirm. Excuse me. And so we jump into the next day, where Aiden's pretty exciting. Jeez, I'm so sorry, guys. Nobody deserves to hear a loud burst of cough while you're doing a podcast. But the next stage of this act here is Aiden. He gets excited because he's going to be watching Mr. Levin's place again, and he's also going to be investigating some other parts. But he's like, I'm not going to go there yet because I have to follow up this other lead. And he's and then October is telling Aiden, this guy, Mr. Levin, he's not the only one that has experienced this kind of theft. There's others in town who's talking about having their objects of sentimental value being stolen, and she's going to be arranging to bring them all in to see if there's some sort of connection between these people, aside from just the sentimental objects being stolen. And
right.
Aiden immediately heads back down to Mr. Eleven's apartment complex. He goes into the shop, the psychic shop, and as he's kind of milling around and looking through things, he ends up finding himself inside a storage room, and eventually, the door opens. Valari sees him, and then immediately slams the door and then locks him in with a broom handle across the knob.
Handles, yeah.
So that he can't get out. And then after a beat, the door opens and it's Sanvi and Valare who are there, and he's just like, I can explain. And he's stumbling over his words until Sanvi asks, "Are you here for a reading?" And he's like, "Yes, that is exactly what I am here for." And she's like, "You're in the wrong room. Come with me." and so she asks him.
She's surprised.
Yeah,
Valari is surprised that she could see him.
Yeah, Valari has this reaction that she's surprised that Sanvi can see him, and we'll get a little bit more into that later when it's her from her point of view. But what's cool is as Sanvi is kind of saying, well, like, what did you come here for? And Aiden is, saying, well, you tell me. And so he's finds out that Aiden is kind of blinded right now. He's chasing something unrealistic, and that giving him the old there's the psychic stuff, you know exactly what it is you need. I'm going to here to give you some hope and some clarity for it. I'm going to do so by asking questions to kind of dig in what's going on, and as they're talking, Sanvi remarks on this kind of stone that he wears, like a bracelet. And she says, "Oh, this is a stone that's meant to repel people. I gave it to an Asian couple like years ago." And that takes us back to a moment where Aiden's mom and dad give him this stone to wear, so that in the hopes that people won't get a close connection to him, they'll always be able to see him. And so we get this nice little kind of passive connection of, oh, okay, so his parents, in desperation to try to preserve their son's future and being visible, went to Sanvi and managed to get a stone and give it to their kid, to Aiden, so that he can, whether it works or not, just something of a solace and hope to make sure that he has a proper, better life. Excuse me. And yeah, so he's a little jarred by this. He doesn't know what's going on. He's confused. He has to process the information. Sanvi says, "You know what? You're definitely Aiden. This young fellow, you are clearly disheveled. How about you're not ready? How about you come back next week? Consider this a free preview, and when you're better ready, come back. Have a good day, and we'll do a proper reading with you afterwards." And as he's there, and Sanvi and Aiden are kind of Sanvi and Valare are leaving. Sanvi just leaves like a normal person, and Valare is kind of like backing out, who never he's constantly just staring at him, but not returning the same type of gaze that he's giving her. It's just, there's just that tension that's going on here. And then this takes us to our next suspect, because October has brought in some of the people, and I really liked how they described this next suspect. Her name is Mrs. June. She's in her 80s. And she's described as she can barely make a full sentence without eating some of her sounds. So that's like the person who talks with like loose dentures would be a description of it, right, Price?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and what was the interesting aspect? Do you remember her story at all, and what was taken from her?
What was taken from her? Remind me?
So Mrs. June, the oldest one, she had some cups that were a Christmas gift from her daughter.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. No, it's all right. and they never used them because they're fragile cups and they're worried they're going to break, and they ended up losing their daughter to breast cancer. So they wanted to keep this as a token of her memory. But
I'm still wondering about the lady with the egg that she kept for 4 years in her fridge.
Yeah, that's weird.
Did they ever explain that one? Because that one was like weird.
No, they didn't quite explain that one. But yeah,
was she going to eat the egg? I mean, what was she going to do with that egg after 4 years?
I don't know.
You know what? It would have been cool if somebody would have wanted to eat it thinking it's like a fresh egg, and then they would have like
died,
poisoned and died, and that's why you have to take it away from the lady so that nobody will eat it. Mm-hmm. That would have been cool. I wish they would have gone in that direction because they don't say anything. They're just like, I have an old egg in my fridge.
Yeah, the egg was kind of like a hanging chad. It's like I want to know what that story is because we do get more after that, but excuse me. Yeah, we're getting all of these little stories about weird things being taken, and the other part too is some of them have been taken years ago, and nobody has asked for a ransom for it or any type of other extortion, and Aiden thinks that's kind of really odd that's the case. It's like, why would you steal something that it would be that's comforting to someone but has no value to anyone else? And Aiden asks the question, it's like, I don't know, like, what if you had something of sentimental value that no one else would really care about, what would that be for you, Miss October? And she's like, oh, I'll show you exactly what this is. She has this, opens up her desk, she has a locked box in there, she gets a key from her pocket, opens it up, she reveals an exquisite antique gun inside. She's like, this gun belonged to my family for ages, and without it this office would never have existed. And then soon she'll hand it to her child and his child, who is going to be born soon. So her son is expecting a kid any week now. And
I have to say that was like Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
The second they showed it, you know that it's going to play some kind of role doing something. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, it's very obvious that something is going to happen. She's like, this is my gun. This is the most important thing. And like, you know that something is going to happen to that gun.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you do it. That's the part. I mean, there's been many clever uses of Chekhov's gun. There's been even some that have been brilliant distractions where they set up a Chekhov's gun and then they set up another Chekhov's gun that's more Chekhov's gun than the gun. And that one has the payoff that's a punchline that makes you like laugh hysterically. And it makes you realize, like, I'm just teaching you what a Chekhov's gun is, and then I'm going to show you another Chekhov's gun. And yeah, I've seen a couple of plays that do that. I've seen some television shows that have done that. Oh gosh, yeah, there's an episode of Archer, the comedy spy cartoon show. They do a great distractive Chekhov's gun thing with a pen, I think, if I remember correctly. So after we kind of collect all these various victims of these peculiar crimes, and we get October setting up her own Chekhov's gun, Aiden returns to Sanvi's shop and decides that, yeah, he wants to get a reading, but instead of Sanvi doing the reading, he asks if Valari could do that. And Valari says that she's not allowed to do that, and Sanvi says, well, wait, why not? It's time you try it by yourself. And she insists that she does it. So Valari takes a seat across from Aiden, and they stare into each other's eyes, and she starts, kind of doing a reading, saying, oh, you're looking for some answers. And Aiden's like, yeah. And she's, trying to do her quote-unquote powers, and she says, like, it all started in the past. Tell me about the very beginning. And Aiden then kind of recounts his, like, the very beginning, I was born in April of 1995. My brother says I was an ugly baby. So we get this little comedic beat here until he says, I'm actually looking for a friend, probably my only friend. And we were the same age. She lived only a few blocks from me, and she was very strong, and not physically, but, she had some strength to her, but she didn't seem to care about what other people thought, and didn't care to fit in anywhere. And Valari asks, like, well, how did you become friends? He kind of like gives us a truncated version of the story, and And Valari asks, like, well, are you still looking for her? And he's like, no, I know where she is right now. And Valari kind of has a little amused a reaction to that. And he's like, okay, well, then what is your question then? And Aiden just flat out says it, like, very smooth. He says, I wonder, if I ask her out on a date, would she say yes? And this is where Valari, like, immediately breaks eye contact. And Aiden just doesn't, like, take his eyes off her. And he basically says, tomorrow, 4 p.m. in the park where we always did homework together. And then Valari's reaction here is actually pretty cool because it just further solidifies what Aiden suspects, where he's like, that's a very far from here. And he's like, yeah, but it's a weekend. And why not? And so we cut to the park. And he set up this elaborate date for Valari. And they start hanging out and, you know, kind of reminiscing, and she kind of remembers him, and he's made her some cookies and some food, except for like the dumplings, and they have a really kind of beautiful date, which is like really heartwarming. And it's all dialogue and talking about the balloons and why he used to wear them, because she had a question about that, and he's trying to find out, like, you know, why did you go away? And then this takes us into essentially like her story, where we kind of go through everything that she went through as a kid, and we find out that any person that she has a physical interaction with, she sees when they die, kind of like the you know, the Dead Zone, that movie and the TV series. So
I really liked The Dead Zone. I didn't see the TV series, but I watched the movie with Christopher Walken.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the movie was actually quite good. I recently, after I hadn't watched it for a long time, I watched The Dead Zone, and I still rather enjoyed it, I'll tell you the truth.
Oh, no, it's a good movie. I mean, not only is it a good movie, the series is not too bad. And if you ever catch the old Christopher Walken SNL sketch where he does the Dead Zone in an office place, that's hysterical.
I vaguely remember that, but now I feel like I have to revisit that as well. Yeah. I haven't seen that in many years, but it does sound familiar to me. The movie, though, with Christopher Walken and The Dead Zone, I've always liked that. I think that actually is one of Christopher Walken's better movies for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And he has a lot of stuff that he's done that I like, but that one is one of the ones that stands out. Like, if I had to put together like a top 5 or something like that, it probably would be on it.
Oh, absolutely, because it's one of the few movies I can think of off the top of my head where he is the one holding the entire film on his shoulders. Because a lot of the roles he does, he's more of like a supporting character or an antagonist.
Right.
And The Dead Zone is like, it's all him. And
the more Walken he is, the better it is.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, Valari is basically a kid with the Dead Zone, and she was told that she looked a lot like her father, but she was always worried that she was too much like her father, because her mother, who was very young when she had Valari, I think she was like 18. Her mother reveals that her father has no emotions, and he pretends for emotions, and that's why their family life is so dark. And Valari draws a picture of her mother, who is, you know, dying, and her mother Charlotte is like, "Is this me? Why did you draw it?" And she's like, "Did you want your mom to be gone?" And Valari's like, "No." And her mother kind of reacts that, "Okay, so you're incapable of real emotion, just like your father. This is horrible. Don't." And then she basically says, "Don't ever try to pretend like you care about anybody if you actually don't. Just focus on being honest, and because if you're a person who is without love and a loveless person, faking it is worse than being honest about it." And what we get from this interaction is that Charlotte is drawing a picture of something that she saw that she doesn't quite understand, and that is that she sees when people right before they die. and she has seen an image of her mother having been taken away, and
Right.
that type of exposure to those things can really kind of eat away at your soul as it's developing as a kid. And what we find out is that, yeah, when on the day when she was taken away by the police, that was the day when she came home, and yeah, her mother was gone, and her father committed the act and then did that to himself, and she was put to a foster family. And even as that family was having difficulty believing that she could see when people pass away, they chastise her for never looking both ways when she crosses the street. And her response is, "That's not how I die." And that I thought was a pretty like basic way to do it, but has a chilling undertone to it, which is it's not just that she sees other people; she also knows when she's about to go.
Also, I don't think it's a spoiler, but the way that she also anticipates that these people are gonna die at the zoo, and the whole everything that I like that whole situation. I want to also tell you, from this whole movie, her angle as a kid that has this gift, and how she deals with it, and the trauma of not being able to save her mother, and then her foster parents that she knows, but they kind of don't take that seriously. I actually thought that those were the stronger parts of the screenplay.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I'm like, wow, this is the kind of thing that I'm really connecting with. Because even with the Dead Zone, he's a grown man. I think that this type of idea through the eyes of a child that's sort of growing and doesn't know what to do with this gift is really, really interesting. And it's one of the things that really stands out in the movie. Like, sometimes you have movies that you start that the first act is really interesting, and then the second part kind of falls off the cliff or becomes boring or stupid.
Right.
I felt that the first act here was okay, even though I had a lot of questions about that capability and like the things we already brought up. It's actually the second act that we were focusing more on this girl. I think it was the second act that we were focusing more on her and her life. And then I'm like, okay, this actually is sort of, instead of going down, it's actually the screenplay is going up in a way.
Oh yeah, it has a rising action, because this is your mid-act turning point. This is where we start to see and understand Valare's point of view. And what's fascinating is that she thinks something is wrong with her because she can see these visions of when people die. And when she meets Aiden, who is being homeschooled, so he's not in her classes, she thinks he's an imaginary friend, like that she's crazy and that she's just fabricated this kid. And
I have a question about that as well, and
sure.
Maybe it's explained in the screenplay, but now when I was thinking about it, I keep thinking, how is this explained? Because basically, if she doesn't like him, then she would be able to see him.
Right.
So why does she think he's an imaginary friend if she actually doesn't like him?
Well, the way that she explains is that she didn't quite understand where Aiden came from when she first meets him while she's studying. Like, he just introduces himself, and then she talks about how when she first saw him, she thought he was just her imagination kind of playing a trick on him, but she felt it was kind of weird because this imaginary friend of hers had way more of an imagination than she ever did. But
why would she think he's imaginary? She doesn't. She initially is. She's not his mother. She can see him the first time that he talks to her. So really, does he start disappearing for her when she's a kid? I don't remember now.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
So
I got you.
At first part, when he pops out of nowhere, she just thinks this is imagination. But as they start to spend more time together, he starts to become more transparent to her, and that's what solidifies from her perspective that this is her hallucinating, because she
has to be animated.
Yeah.
Has to be animated, this movie, for sure. But go on.
Exactly. So, and the funny part is that the way that Aiden talks, he immediately says, "Hey, I'm Aiden, and the more you know me, I might become invisible to people who love me." And that's just a weird thing to say, and it's also very hard to believe. So you're able to lean into it like, oh, this could be just my mind playing tricks on me with fantasy. And because as they start hanging out more and more together, he starts becoming more and more transparent. And so when this traumatic thing happens, and she doesn't know how to deal with it, and why should she? She's only 7. The only thing that she could say is, I don't ever want to see you again. And it wasn't, and she would remark about how she thought her imagination was really, really powerful, because other people would see Aiden and interact with him briefly, but she was still convinced that he was imaginary because she saw him mostly transparent. And it isn't until like almost a little over a decade later, when she opens that closet door and sees him there again and recognizes him, that she gets freaked out that maybe part of her psychosis has returned, until Sani, I keep forgetting her name. Sanvi sees him as well, and it just throws her off. But the next part that's really cool is Mr. 11 comes into Sanvi's shop to get a reading. And as that reading is happening, she touches Mr. 11 and sees him outside of his apartment building that's on fire. And he pushes his way past the firefighters to run into his apartment and grab the notebooks in his dresser. And as he's doing this, the roof collapses on him. And we find out that the next night, she sneaks into his apartment and steals those books, so that when that fire happens, he doesn't have a reason to run inside and rescue them, because they're already gone. And and then we also find out that she goes to visit her parents every once in a while, and she'll sit between their graves and just kind of, relax and take things in. And she ends up meeting a guy who she trips and he catches her, and he sees him having a heart attack during his daughter's recital. And she says, thank you so much for helping me, but you should really take care of yourself better, because you might have a heart attack and you might not be able to see your daughter play at a concert in the future. And, this is a stranger, of course, but she's just said information to him that she should know. And when we do kind of cut back to him later, he's not eating a pie. Like he's giving it to his wife and his kid, but he's saying, no, I'm full. I'm not going to have any dessert. I'm going to eat healthier. And we find out that this is what Valare has been doing when she interacts with a person and sees how they're going to pass. She changes the circumstances in the hopes that that person won't die. And it's a very fascinating character choice for her, because it shows that even though she behaves kind of cold and distant, she still cares about people. She's just behaving that way because she's seen a lot of tragedy, whether it has happened yet or not, and it's affecting her. It's giving her, a hard time to go day by day, and the fact that she's making this effort to, take these things that lead to people's demise away from them, in the hopes that they don't, succumb to that, is showing that she's got a really big heart, just like Aiden does.
Really like that, by the way. I like her character arc. I like this part of the story. Like I said, these are the parts of the screenplay that I like the most. This whole idea, it feels like I said, I'm never fully sold unless it's animated on the transparency of the other guy. Mm-hmm. But once the screenplay shifts to focusing on her character arc, and from being this girl at the beginning that you don't know if maybe there's something bad about her, she's evil, she brings like bad energy or something, I don't know what it is, because you're not really sure about her, you don't know enough. Mm-hmm. Then that you learn that actually her whole behavior is because she actually does care, and the burden she has of knowing what happens to people and how she's trying to actually help them. It really changes how you perceive the character, and I really like when a movie does that. When you watch it and you're thinking something of a character, but as you're watching more, you realize that you didn't even fully understand the character, and whatever journey she goes on is actually, it's stronger than, in my opinion, the journey that he goes on.
Oh yeah, because hers, like Aiden's journey is just I like this girl, I want to be with her. Her journey is, how do I deal with seeing these outcomes, and do I just let them happen, or if there's something I can do to change it, should I make an effort to change? And we get this really great moment where she bumps into Aiden in October in a grocery store because they're interviewing people about other objects that have been stolen, and Aiden kind of arranges for Valare to shake October's hand, and when she shakes October's hand, she sees that sometime in the future, like a few years from now, the grand October and her son and her grandson are in her office, and she's showing the family the gun, and then she puts it away, and then the kid manages to get into the
gun
drawer.
that she talked about earlier as being some big family heirloom or whatever it is.
Yeah, and she's expressing how important it is, and then her son is expressing how important it is to his son, and then they put it away, but not properly. And of course, guys can figure out the rest. And then what we find out is that, for October, the gun isn't gone, but the magazine is completely empty, and there's no bullets in there. And
really like that. Again, these are the stronger parts. Like we've had a lot of screenplays that we've discussed on your show, and I think that a lot of times, most of them have had things that just seem dumb or annoying or not well thought out. And I feel like you said, was this 51 out of 100? This screenplay,
51st place out of 78. Yeah.
You know what? I am a bit surprised by that. I do think that perhaps if they should have written an animated feature, if they would have written that on the cover, I think you say that most people understood that, but I think that this is my humble opinion, and at least whatever I've run into to date, I've met some people to date in Hollywood that, even executives, even at either networks or even at movie studios, production companies, I've interacted with them. They're not always as brilliant as you think that they are.
No, they're not. I think only the 11 people that voted for this figured out that this was supposed to be that this would work as a cartoon.
Probably. I think that most people read it and just didn't even fully get it and dismissed it. And the fact that it's 51 out of 78 really surprises me, because we have had some serious stinkers that we've done. It could be that only I landed on the stinkers and the rest of the time they were all great. But I will say that the ones that you and I have done to date on your show that we've discussed, a lot of them, I can barely remember one that I really thought like, wow, this is good. Maybe we had one, but I don't even remember which one that was. I don't even remember if we had one like that.
We've had one. I think episode 60 was one that we really liked, but that's like earlier this year.
Which one was it? Do you remember?
Oh, episode 60. Let me try and think. If I can remember that one, I'll just go through. I'll scroll through the quick archive.
It's okay. The bottom line is that I think that this movie here is actually one of the better ones that I've read from the ones that we were reviewing. So I'm not saying that it's like, The Godfather, okay? It's not like it's the best thing that ever happened to cinema, but I thought it was a movie that had some character and some ideas that I thought were interesting. And in the hands of the right people, I think that this movie has merit, I dare say.
Oh, I would agree also. So yeah, the episode 60 was It's Not You, It's Me. That's I think that was the body swap comedy. I think that was the body swap comedy that we reviewed, if I remember correctly.
I barely remember. I remember we did it, but I don't remember. We said we liked that one.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. Maybe I have difficulty now. I don't want to promise
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
like this.
that's the one where they break up and then they get body swapped while they have to go to their best friend's wedding. And
Yes, there were
yeah,
some weird things there, but I think maybe overall there was at least an idea that wasn't terrible. If I remember
yeah.
correctly, have to don't want to vouch for it yet
Well,
until
I mean, you
watching the
voted.
recap.
We both voted that was good at the time. But if we can't remember,
We
that's
did
okay.
okay. I can't. If I did that, I did that because I remember that it had some merit. Like it had some ideas that I liked, but there were some things that were kind of weird, like them engaging in
When they started having
bedroom.
sex with each other and when they're in their other bodies, yeah.
That was a bit weird, when I think about it now. But I think that there were some interesting ideas there, nevertheless. In any case, back to this one. I think I like this one better than that one.
Yeah, this one has a lot of endearing qualities to it. One of the things I really liked, like as we're in Valeria's perspective, we're seeing more of her going on dates with Aiden, and we see from her perspective he is slowly becoming more and more transparent. But they go
Like
to
that
this
too, yeah.
they go to this postcard shop, and one of the gimmicks that this shop has, and I've seen this around other cities, is you can write a postcard to yourself in the future. And so he buys one because it's 2016, so he buys one for 2026, and he basically says, "Hello, Aiden, in 2026. How is Mom? How is Dad? How's Zilliam? I hope everyone is well, and that Valere is still with you." And she sees him write that in. She reads it. Her heart skips a beat. She's incredibly smitten with that, and then he kind of gets it, sends it off to be delivered a decade from now, and then Valari ends up bumping into that guy again who she spoke with earlier about getting a better health, and she sees more of his heart attack. We find out that he has a daughter who's blind, and she plays, I think, the violin, and she's engaged to Aiden, and she realizes that this is Aiden's true love because she is blind. This other woman who's blind. She can't see him anyway, so she can always feel his presence and always be around him, and that they have a truly happy life together. And so she now starts to question, well, if these two people are supposed to be together, then I can't be with him. I have to make sure that he is with someone that can really embrace him properly. And so she decides that she's going to try to just kind of leave. And Aiden doesn't want this to happen. As they're kind of coming to terms with that, Aiden is in the detective office with October, and they hear fire trucks, and they look outside, and that apartment building, Mr. Levin's apartment building, is on fire, and Aiden immediately rushes to the scene, and he sees Mr. Levin is outside talking with the firemen, and just in the distance he sees Valare there, and he chases after her, and we find out that in her apartment she has a little storage room that has all the things that she's taken, and what she has done is she has gone back there and she's grabbed the books that she took from Mr. Levin, and she's planning on returning them to him. And Aiden says, "You know what? No, let me do that." And while he is talking to her about this, he completely disappears, and so she can't see him anymore. She can hear him, but she can't see him anymore. And her heart starts to break. And Aiden says, "You know what? To keep you out of the spotlight, as it were, for taking these items from this man, I'm just going to say that they turned up, and I'm going to give it back to him, and he's going to be very happy." And so he does that. He gives those books back to Mr. Levin, and he's incredibly grateful for it. And now it comes to like the deciding choice. Now that Aiden is 100% invisible to Valare, are they going to still be together? Is Valare going to be able to convince Aiden to go to leave her, and find true love with the blind woman that she saw in another man's end of days? Excuse me. Or are they going to stay together? And that's where we're going to cut it off for spoilers here, guys. And I am going to encourage you, if you can, get a hold of the script, give it a read, and make a decision for yourself. But with that being said, Price, let's talk about the final thoughts and then get into if this is a green light or a pass.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that even, and I won't spoil, even the way this movie wraps up, I rather like that. It seemed like it was going in one way, and I actually thought that they were going to go in a certain direction, and then it ended up. I kind of thought that that's the way it would end, and the fact that there was even a few interesting developments there towards the end, I actually like that. I don't know. It's not that I was stunned that it went in one way or another, but I just kind of liked the way it was resolved and how it ended, and I said, you know what, this is just a. It's a movie that I don't know if to say. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm saying this is a satisfying movie to watch.
Yeah.
It presents a bunch of different ideas. It works with those ideas. It commits to them, and by the end of it, I think that we have two characters with really interesting arcs, and crossing paths and over again, and how it all comes together at the end. I think that this screenplay does a lot of things correctly. I again will say that if some of these studios weren't 100% sold on it, it's just because I think that they didn't add that kind of an animated feature that would have probably given a whole different perspective. I will say that even while I was reading it, I told myself it's a fantasy. Just get over whatever reservations you have and just imagine it working. But really, once you told me, hey, this would be a great anime movie, and the second you said that, I'm like, yes. It makes a huge difference. Sometimes, and we also see a lot of that with Disney. You know how we've seen in recent years that they've done these kind of live-action remakes, like the live-action remake to The Little Mermaid. One of the things that doesn't work in that live-action remake is all the fantasy element of the fish talking and the crab and all that stuff and the seagull. It works so much better in the animated movie.
Yeah.
And once they brought it to live action, even with all their CGI, there's something kind of uninspiring about it. And I feel like this is the opposite. This is a movie that needs that kind of treatment where everything is more expressive and brings you into full fantasy mode. I'm not saying you can't do a live action of this. I just think it's not going to work out as well. But if you go with it as an animated feature, I like what I see here. And another thing I'll tell you, there have been, every time we've done a show, even the one that I think we said okay with the swapping places, I think we did have some comments. Maybe not a million comments. Maybe we didn't, nitpick as much. But I believe we still had more comments.
Yeah.
In this movie, I feel like I didn't have a gazillion comments. Whoever wrote this movie knew what they were trying to do, and ultimately, I think that they, for whatever they're trying to accomplish, they pretty much get the job done. Yes, the detective, why is he detective now? The fact that he's disappeared to his loved ones doesn't necessarily mean he's a detective. Would have been nice to maybe clarify that point. I also don't know why they give him a cup and the cup disappears, but then some other stuff doesn't disappear. There's questions about that maybe weren't fully fleshed out, but those are pretty minor. If I zoom out and look at this movie as a whole, and I suspend disbelief where they need me to, especially in a fantasy kind of anime style cartoon, I think that for the most part, this isn't one of those situations that I think this screenplay needs to be completely rewritten. I think that this is a situation that I think there's really a foundation where you could work with it, and with the right team of people and the right production, the right director, the right animators, the right studio involved, there is something good that you can do with this screenplay, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, one of the things that kept popping into my head are just various visions of clips from other animes I've seen, and I've seen many, but I don't watch them that often. But when you're seeing like, a meet cute between a boy and a girl, like interacting and kind of becoming friends, versus like when they're adults and they're kind of falling in love, and you have those happier, joyous moments that are interacted here. Those felt very connected to what the writer was putting on the page here. Like this was kind of going through their minds. Again, I don't think that was her initial intention, but that's the outcome that I got from it, because there's an innocence to this. There's something sweet and endearing to these characters, yes, to their struggles, And how they tie it up at the end, I thought was satisfying. I mean, if I had access to an animation studio, I'd be like, let's put this to work. Let's get some storyboards going. Let's find some voice actors to do these characters, and let's treat it with a lot of earnest and lean into the whimsy, but don't make it feel like it's childish. You know, because that's a hard edge to walk between whimsy and something that becomes kind of patronizing to children. It's like, no, you want something where it has that balance where you accept the fantasy and you're able to fall into it, but you don't. It's not the type that if you're walking by in the living room and someone had this on and you heard some of the dialogue, you would cringe. Like, you don't want that type of tone. And fortunately, the script does not have that tone in there. But if it was, I mean, like with all things, if you didn't get the exact best chemistry between two actors, it could come off that way. But
right.
But no, this was good. It was easy to follow. Again, simple. I mean, I like that B-plot premise that kind of wraps everything together. Is that the mystery is who is stealing these innocuous things that have great sentimental value, but really no one in the right mind would ever steal. And then you find out, yeah, it's because these things connect to people who end up having tragedy afflict them that costs their lives. And when that element is removed from their lifestyle, we find out that, yeah, they end up living and not dying in such a horrific way, and kind of like an anti-Final Destination sort of thing. And
right.
And then we also find out the intention is that once that moment has passed, Valeria plans to return what she took, so that they aren't actually losing anything. It's just they don't succumb to the thing that that initially was going to take them away. So I'm guessing for you, Price, this is a green light for you.
It is. It is actually. I'm surprised, but I think it's a green light. And it's not one, I think that the one that maybe we've said something positive about before, I think I had some reservations, but it was overall maybe a decent feeling, and I said, okay, let's go with it. But in this case, or there have been ones that I said, you know what, if you had like a really low budget and you were taking a risk on something like Dumb and you had like $1 million, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it. This isn't one of those cases. This is a case that if somebody does this correctly, I think it could be a very decent movie. And the people reading this screenplay versus the other screenplays that they seem to be giving higher scores than this one, I think that they're just they don't have the vision to understand why this could work, which doesn't surprise me because most of these people don't have vision. And I've mentioned it. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before. I'm sure you've been even in more situations like this than me. But I've been in meetings before in my life. With a network, with a head of a network, with people at a production company that actually makes movies, things like that. I've been at meetings like this, and there have been times, I'm not saying it's always been like that.
Right.
I've had other experiences too, but there have been at least a number of times that I could think of that I sat there and I thought to myself, this person here is not, doesn't deserve this position. I thought to myself, this person has no vision, no understanding, and it's almost like they let like an amateur run this operation. And I was thinking that in my dreams, I wanted to tell that person exactly what I was thinking. Obviously, I couldn't, so I had to just sit there and nod and pretend that everything is great. But those things still I carry with them with me until now. And when I see the way this script got 51st place out of 78?
Yeah.
Versus a lot of these other stinkers, it really highlights how little Hollywood is in touch with actual audiences these days, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, no, I agree with that. There's definitely a disconnect to a lot of executives out there with what could possibly resonate with a general audience. I mean, and again, like for myself, even being a screenwriter, it's really difficult to not be resentful of those people, because that just festers something worse in you. But you have to understand, it's like, okay, so they have a limited perspective. They're not seeing exactly what you're seeing, but sometimes you can find a couple of people that have that perspective, and for whatever reason, they're like, you know what, let's just give it a shot. Maybe it'll go for this market. And then your next big hurdle is, of course, the marketing department, which, they don't want to work. Like I've never met a marketing agent in 20 years at any of the studios that whenever they get something that their boss says, hey, this is a good idea, let's go for it, they don't jump to their feet and say, all right, let's try and sell this thing. They're like, no, this won't sell. Our numbers say this won't sell, so we don't want to do it. It's like, how do you get away with not wanting to do your job and still get paid? I don't know how you do that. I should have gotten into marketing. But yeah, like this type of thing here, I think this should have been higher on the list. I would greenlight this in a second. I have to say, congratulations to Kayla. You did a great job, and this is a story that as I said, I did the research before, that she has had with her for at least 5 years, and she's really refined it into something that I would think would really connect with people. It's definitely a 4-quadrant film. I mean 4-quadrant in the sense that you could have kids see it, but I would say kids maybe around 12 to 15 would probably be a bit safer. Just given some of the darker tones when it comes to Valeria being able to see when a person, their final moments. But yeah, I think this would be pretty good. So we're going to do a quick check-in to the Patreon. So if you're a Patreon over at for supporting this channel, you'll get to see some posts, some additional coverage, and also what script we'll be reviewing on the following Saturday show. And you get to vote on whether or not you would greenlight it or pass it. And what we have here on the Patreon side is the patrons that participated. They voted for 100% to greenlight this script, so they enjoyed reading it. I also posted a poll in the live chat here about how you thought about the coverage and the script in general. And for those that were listening, they voted in favor of greenlighting 75% and 25% to pass. So I want to thank you guys out there for voting. Really appreciate that. Helps us understand the types of audiences that we are connecting with. And it also gives you guys a chance to participate in the show as well. Excuse me. With that being said, Price, where can our wonderful listeners find you on the interwebs?
Well, first of all, I have a channel called Price of Reason, and that's the main channel. They're welcome to see video reviews and just some pop culture news reports there. Some people like that kind of stuff. And if you're more into live streams, which sometimes you are, or most of the time when you can, you're on Quantum Leap Revisited. That's every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's on my live stream channel, which is Price of Reason Live. Both of these channels, I recommend them. I'm not objective, but I recommend them. Mm-hmm. I would greenlight them both. And I recommend if people feel like subscribing to one or both of them, that would be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Price, for joining me this weekend. For everybody out there, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you guys next week with our next script. Should I tease you guys about the next week's script? Yeah, let's tease you guys about next week's script. So next week's script is called Stardust Queen. And this one is about a 90s pop star that might secretly also be a world-class assassin. So yeah, tune in for that one. Sounds like it might be a fun ride. We'll be talking about that next week. For now, I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to also thank our lovely mods, Darren M. and Lord Doth, for modding the live show today, and they've been modding it for several episodes. Sometimes I always apologize if I can't ever shout out you guys for being so helpful in the chat. Greatly appreciate it, as always. That's I got to get better at that, because I don't always host live shows other than this one so often. So I gotta get better. But I appreciate all of you guys listening live or on the recording here or out on the Patreon. It's always really great that we're having fun entertaining you guys and sharing with you our thoughts and opinions on various stories that are outside of the mainstream of Hollywood with legacy IPs and tons of remakes. We're able to actually showcase for you guys some real writers out there that are really looking to try and share an interesting and fun story that might be familiar, but for all intents and purposes is much more original than most of what we're usually getting. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us, and never forget, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.